Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Benjamin Munro. On the 3rd of September 1939, Prime Minister Robert Menzies announced Australia's involvement in the Second World War. In a broadcast carried by every national and commercial radio station in Australia, he announced, "Fellow Australians, it is my melancholy duty to inform you officially that in consequence of the persistence of Germany in her invasion of Poland, Great Britain has declared war upon her, and that, as a result, Australia is also at war." It was just over 20 years after the end of what was then known as the Great War, the war to end all wars, a global conflict in which 13 million people died. With this carnage and tragedy still so close, many in Europe had been desperate to avoid further tragedy and carnage. Britain had done much to avoid another war, leaving Nazi Germany's military forces to rearm and expand, annexing Austria and then occupying Czechoslovakia. The authoritarian nationalism of the Nazis created a dictatorship in Germany and led to a genocide on an unimaginable scale. With the German invasion of Poland on the 1st of September, Menzies argued, forces had to be resorted to check the march of force. Honest dealing, the peaceful adjustment of differences, the rights of independent people to live their own lives, the honouring of international obligations and promises. All these things are at stake. The Second World War involved more than 1 million people from more than 30 countries. More than 60 million people died. Almost 1 million Australian men and women served in the war. More than 40,000 of them would die in service of the nation. Few could have imagined that victory would come at such a terrible cost. In announcing the end of the war in August 1945, Prime Minister Ben Chifley said, "Let us remember those whose lives were given, that we may enjoy this glorious moment and may look forward to a peace which they have won for us." Today, we remember and honour all those Australians who served during the Second World War. This evening, we're honoured to welcome Mr. Nick Rasmussen, Senior Security Fellow, McCain Institute for International Leadership, United States of America. We also warmly welcome members of the Australian War College from Western Creek. Group Captain Bruce Chandler, retired, representing the Air Force Association. We welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of St Eugene College, Burpengary, Queensland. If able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to gunner Douglas St. Clair. Douglas St. Clair was born on the 5th of October 1919 in South Melbourne. Little is known about his early life other than that his mother's name was Alice. Douglas was 20 years old, single, living with his mother in Melbourne and working as a clerk at the outbreak of the Second World War. Douglas enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 19th of June 1940. By August, he had been posted to the 3rd Light Anti-Aircraft Regiment, then forming at Werribee. On the 29th of December, the unit embarked for overseas service aboard the ocean liner, now a troop ship, Mauritania. At Colombo, they transshipped to HMT Devonshire and disembarked at Haifa in Palestine on the 31st of January 1941. The 3rd Light Anti-Aircraft Regiment was initially stationed near Gaza, and on the 5th of February, they were visited by Prime Minister Menzies. Sergeant Hill said that after being made to stand for 2 hours along the road, the boys were wild. Next day, one of the regiment's 3 batteries, the 8th, was sent to Tobruk to aid in the besieged garrison's defence. In early April, as the Allied Expeditionary Force arrived in Greece, the remainder of the 3rd Light Anti-Aircraft Regiment set out for Amaria in Egypt. During this time, Douglas was punished for being absent without leave, his 2nd offence. The 7th Battery, to which Douglas belonged, was not destined to stay long in Egypt. It was originally intended to go to Greece, but it quickly became clear that the campaign there was doomed and the Allied troops would be evacuated. The 7th Battery would therefore go to the island of Crete. Under the command of Major Hipworth, they embarked from Alexandria aboard the Ulster Prince on the 22nd of April. Arriving 2 days later, amid the chaos of troops evacuated from Greece, the battery was initially positioned near the main town of Hania. At night, they camped among the olive groves. In the expectation that the Germans would soon try to capture Crete, some 48,000 Allied troops remained on the island to defend it. Anticipating the enemy would attack by air, the 7th Battery's complement of 16 Bofors anti-aircraft guns would be valuable. At the end of April, headquarters, along with the majority of B and C troops, were moved east to Heraklion, where they would defend the aerodrome. On the 4th of May, A Troop was repositioned to defend Maleme airfield, just west of Hania. Gunner St. Clair was with them. Before long, the Luftwaffe attacks began. The bombing and strafing gradually increased over the next few weeks until the morning of the 20th of May, when all hell broke loose. Beginning just before 7 a.m, each anti-aircraft gun was attacked by multiple dive bombers. Then came the gliders, followed by the paratroops descending from them. Landing to the west of Tavronitis River, the enemy paratroops immediately sought cover in the dry riverbed. Their mission was to seize control of the bridge, then capture the adjacent Maleme airfield. That would allow them to rapidly bring in many more troops. The attackers were from the elite German Airborne Assault Regiment. They had already suffered heavy casualties, but their senior officers rallied a group of survivors for the assault. A fierce battle took place on the airfield's western end as they stormed the positions held by New Zealand infantrymen. The Germans were only a few yards away, hurling grenades into the main trench near the Bofors gun. The Australian anti-aircraft gunners, including Douglas St. Clair, joined their fellow Anzacs and fought it out. But they were soon overwhelmed. The position was taken and all but one were killed. Among the dead was Douglas St. Clair. With the airfield captured, Crete was lost. The 7th Battery had suffered heavily. Only 71 men got away. Nearly 200 had become casualties. 50 were dead. The rest were hiding on Crete or had been taken prisoner. Conflicting stories emerged about St. Clair's fate. One comrade reported that he thought St. Clair had been captured, but another, who had been taken prisoner, said he was last seen fighting at the airstrip. Since nothing could confirm that he was a prisoner, Douglas St. Clair was eventually considered missing, believed killed. His body was never recovered from the battlefield, so he is commemorated on the memorial at Phaleron War Cemetery in Athens. He was 21 years old. Douglas St. Clair's name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Gunner Douglas St. Clair, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If able, please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub of Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.